Hello, boys and girls. I'm coming to you from my front porch again. It's a Sunday afternoon. It's beautiful outside. We're going to move on to our next lesson with Moses. Today won't be a very long Bible story. So let's begin with a word of prayer. Lord, thank you so much for this beautiful day. Thank you for your creation. Thank you that we get to enjoy your creation every day. Lord, we just want to thank you so much for bringing Miss Cassidy home. Lord, I just pray that you bless her. Lord, help her have a full recovery. Lord, give her the strength to do the things that she needs to do in order to get well. Lord, we just praise you for the miracle of what you've done in Miss Cassidy's life and in our classroom this year. You're an awesome God. Lord, we love you so much. We pray that you be with us now as we go and study your word. Lord, help us to learn from your word and hide your word in our heart, but also put into practice the things that you want us to do and learn. Lord, we love you so much and pray this in your name, Jesus. Amen. Okay, before we get into our story, let's look. I hope you can see this. The sun is kind of bright out here today. But this is a map of Israel's journeys since we began. And we're just going to review a few things before we start our Bible lesson. Okay, so here is Egypt. This is where the Israelites started out, right here in Egypt. And that's when they were slaves in Egypt. And then God delivered them from the Pharaoh. And they came down here, and here's the Red Sea. So they crossed over the Red Sea. Remember, God parted the waters for them, and they crossed on dry land. Then they came to a place called Marah, where the waters were bitter. And God told Moses to throw a tree into the water, and it made the water sweet. Then they came down to Elim. Elim was the place where they had the 12 springs and the 70 palm trees. Then they came down here to Mount Sinai. Back before Sinai, they were at Rephidim, and that's when God told Moses to hit the rock, and the water came out from it, and so provided them water. Then they went down to Mount Sinai, and they stayed for almost a year. That's where they had the golden calf tragedy, and where God gave them the law, the commandments. Then they came back up here to Kadesh Barnea. That's where the spies went out and went into the promised land up here into Canaan, and 10 of them came back with negative reports, and Joshua and Caleb came back with positive reports, saying that the land was good, and we can take the people of Canaan. God has promised us this land, so we can go in and take that land from them. Then they came down to, and remember there, the Israelites did not believe the report, and they grumbled and complained, and because of that, they had consequences, and they had to wander in the desert for 40 years. So they kind of wander around there. Okay, so we're going to be in Numbers chapter 20 today. All right, sorry for the loud noise today. All right, so Numbers 20, chapter 20, verses 1 through 13. It says, in the first month, the whole Israelite community arrived at the desert of Zin, and they stayed at Kadesh. All right, so they're back up here. They wandered around, and they came back up here to Kadesh. And then when they were there, Miriam passed away. Miriam died, and she was buried. Now there was no water for the community, and the people gathered in opposition to Moses and Aaron, and they quarreled with Moses and Aaron. They quarreled with Moses and said, "If only we had died when our brothers fell dead before the Lord. Why did you bring the Lord's community into this desert, that we and our livestock should die here?" Remember this? This sounds familiar. "Why did you bring us up out of Egypt to this terrible place? It has no grain or figs, grapevines or pomegranates, and there is no water to drink." All right, so here are the people complaining before Moses and Aaron. Moses and Aaron went from the assembly to the entrance to the tent of the meeting and fell face down. And the glory of the Lord appeared to them. The Lord said to Moses, "Take the staff, and you and your brother Aaron gather the assembly together. Speak to that rock before their eyes, and it will pour out its water. Now remember, the first time he told Moses to hit the rock, but this time he told him to speak to the rock. You will bring water out of the rock for the community, so they and their livestock can drink. So Moses took the staff from the Lord's presence just as he commanded him. He and Aaron gathered the assembly together in front of the rock, and Moses said to them, "Listen, you rebels." Let me change this. "Listen, you rebels. Must we bring you water out of this rock?" Then Moses raised his arm and struck the rock twice with his staff. Water gushed out, and the community and their livestock drank. But the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "Because you did not trust in me enough to honor me as holy in the sight of the Israelites, you will not bring this community into the land I give them." These were the waters of Meribah, where the Israelites quarreled with the Lord, and where he showed himself holy among them. Okay, so during this passage, God said to go before the people and speak to the rock, and then he would cause the water to come out of the rock. But instead, Moses and Aaron went before the people, and Moses took his staff and he hit the rock twice. Is that what God asked him to do? No, he asked him to just speak to the rock, and he would bring water out of it. But unfortunately, Moses and Aaron disobeyed God, and therefore that they had consequences to their sin as well. God said that neither one of them were going to be able to go into the promised land and see the promised land. Let me go back to this for a second. All right, so after this experience, Israel followed the cloud toward the border of Canaan to the land of Edom. All right, so here's Edom right here. And they wanted to be able to cross over through Edom to get to the promised land because it was just a shorter route. And Moses told the people, promised them that they would stay on the main passageways, they wouldn't eat or drink anything from their vineyards or from their wells, that they were just going to pass on through to have a shorter route. But the king of Edom would not give them permission to pass through his land. So there was nothing for Israel to do but to go to the long route. So they had to, instead of going through Edom, they had to go all the way around Edom. Okay? So they stopped at Mount Hor right here. And because Aaron had disobeyed the Lord at Meribah, where they struck the rock twice, the Lord said that Aaron had to die here, and he was not going to enter the land of Canaan. So he told Moses to take Aaron and Aaron's son Eleazar up to the mountain. Verse 27 says, Moses did as the Lord commanded. They went up Mount Hor in the sight of the whole community. Moses removed Aaron's garments and put them on his son Eleazar, and Aaron died there on top of the mountain. Then Moses and Eleazar came down from the mountain, and when the whole community learned that Aaron had died, the entire house of Israel mourned for him for 30 days. Okay, so that was where Aaron passed away, and he was unable to go into the promised land because of what him and Moses had done. All right, so not a very long story today, but a very important one. Again, when God tells us to do something, we should obey him right away, and we should obey every word that he says. Now, he still blessed the Israelites and gave them water, even though Moses and Aaron did it incorrectly. He still gave them water, but unfortunately there were some consequences because they had done it their own way and not God's way. So I just ask you, boys and girls, and pray that when you hear from the Lord that you do exactly what he asked you to do, and that you would obey right away, and that you would do it with a happy heart, because I think that's when you're going to know that you're going to be blessed by God, is when you're being obedient. All right, guys, well, I hope you have a good Monday. And remember, we only have one more work week of school left, and then you guys get to enjoy your summer. So I hope you have a good day, and I'll see you.